Yo, my lovely cool cats. So, the Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons Elite Specialization Beta is upon us. And I wanted to first do a video on the Virtuoso because, in all honesty, I'm being attacked, in all honesty. Where was I before I was so rudely interrupted? I wanted to say, in all honesty, I really love Mesmer. And I really am in love with the Virtuoso, I have to admit. As a PVE class, I think it's doing absolutely wonderful and it's really interesting. But I will say there are a couple areas that I think really fall short and are more so useless, to put it very bluntly. But I've taken it in some PvP, and I think that PvP, it could work, but I'll touch on that in maybe another video. But first, let's talk about the PvE capabilities of the Virtuoso. So for this, I'm currently running the basic gear that they've given me. Power, Precision, Vitality, and Ferocity with Superior Rune of Divinity. I think this is a really great set, and it's really wonderful to see that they start you off in this. In the other two, I have changed the stats to more go into specific specialization. I'm running with the Greatsword and the Dagger and Focus. Now, I'm a bit more power oriented, and I know that there is a trait line with Condition, but I'll get there in a minute. So for my loadout, I'm running with Twin Blade Restoration, I'm taking Sword of Decimation, Psychic Force, and Rain of Swords, along with 1,000 Cuts. I'm running full Psionic, and for the sake of these videos, I'll be using all of the Elite Specs utility skills. For Domination, I've decided to run with Rending Shatter. Shatter skills inflict vulnerability. I'm taking Egotism, which you deal increased strike damage to foes with a lower health percentage. This is 10% in PvE. And I'm taking Mental Anguish. Shatter skills deal more damage. This bonus damage is doubled against foes that are not activating skills. And you have some decent interrupt potential on this build. Not super crazy, but it's there. Next, I'm running with Dueling. I'm taking Phantasmal Fury. You gain Fury on your Phantasms. Blinding Dissipation, and finally Superiority Complex. This is a very power and crit focused build. Now for the Virtuoso. Have to say, these two traits, I'm not using them. Maybe Mental Focus if you want to do a melee focused Virtuoso, but I genuinely think that this trait needs to be changed. I'm running Blade Turn Refrain because it's the most useful out of the three in my opinion, in both PvE and PvP. This gives you a little bit more survivability. Next, I'm running Phantasmal Blades, and I gotta say, this is a lot of fun. You gain and you continue that sustained damage aspect. And that's something I haven't really talked about. I feel that the Virtuoso is a very strong sustained damage elite spec, more so than any of the other elite specializations we have ever seen before. And then finally, I'm taking Infinite Forge. You automatically stock blades while below 3, so you can get 2 blades if you're below. I genuinely think that there needs to be something else on this trait. I actually would really like it if Infinite Forge allowed you to stock an additional blade. So you got a total of 6 blades. I think that would feel Grandmaster. I think that would genuinely feel like you actually took a Grandmaster trait, because this one doesn't feel like a Grandmaster, and nor does Bloodsong really. I think Psychic Riposte it's not also Grandmaster in my opinion when I look at other elite specs, but this is the most exciting and probably the most impactful of the 3 Grandmasters. But Infinite Forge, I would really enjoy if they allowed you to actually hold 6 blades rather than just 5, and keep the functionality as well. Let's actually talk and go through some of the damage. I'm gonna go fight this veteran giant brawler because he so rudely decided to attack me. I guess we'll just go for it. Shall we go for it? I've noticed that this spec in particular is really good at sustained damage for its utilities and also for its just insane amounts and packets of damage. I initially didn't think that the slow-moving projectile on the 3 would be really great, but I like it. It makes sure that you keep getting those hits and you keep proccing all of your traits. And, you know, if you're fighting someone with Aegis, it will definitely make Aegis a lot less of a scary trait, or a lot less powerful, because you have so many packets of damage. So let's just hop over here. And let me actually use my Blade Turn, my F4, because I do have some enemies in melee. And we'll pop that, and then just do some Rain of Swords. So I think that this build and this class is best played at ranged because you don't have a lot of movement abilities. You don't have a lot of swiftness. You don't have a lot of ports. You don't necessarily have a lot of evades. So by playing it ranged, you get to save yourself a lot of hassle of trying to maneuver out of danger. You don't really have to worry about getting hit with a lot of things. If you are playing it ranged, though, you have to be careful of other ranged specs. You have to be careful of other ranged specs in PvP and fighting enemies out in the open world like the Jacaranda who can shoot you from afar. I think there's still a place for you to take that trait that grants Aegis. It will still be useful. I mean, even that was a ranged skill. So there's a lot of things you can do to still utilize certain Aegis traits. And even the dodging trait as well. Slash it all. Oh my gosh. We're gonna get some Fury here. And then we're gonna use our Blade Song. Also, you can move while using your Blade Songs, which is really useful. And see here, we can really much keep a full stack of 25 vulnerability so long as we're getting those strikes. So that'll pierce too. A lot of nice packs of damage. That elite is wonderful. So that's kind of a little showcase of the Virtuoso. Now I'm gonna keep fighting and still talk a little bit about the spec. I think that this spec has a lot of potential and has some good builds so far. But I think the traits in certain situations are confusing and counter-intuitive to the overall playstyle. I think Mental Focus, Adept trait in the middle, needs to be changed. I think that this should in fact be you deal 15% more strike damage against foes above the range threshold. This automatically puts you in a very scary situation because, especially in PvP, you're going to want to get up close. But with this spec, you don't have a lot of ways to negate damage or get out of the way if you need to. You're also quite slow with your shatters. So I think that by having a trait that forces you into melee, it genuinely feels disconnected to the overall theme of the elite spec. And I have seen people say like, but you can just use core stuff. When it comes to elite specs, I don't want them to placate to core. I want this to feel like a new way to play Mesmer. And we have had so many melee-oriented builds and so many melee-oriented elite specs so far that we already have that fulfilled. We already have a sense of being a melee Mesmer. But to be a spellcasting ranged Mesmer, we really haven't come into that prime yet. But I think with that trait and this elite spec as a whole, there's so much range capability, but that trait, I don't know why they still have it set to below 600. And this trait, you're not really gonna get a lot of use out of it because even if you go melee in Virtuoso, you're gonna get bursted down. You're gonna die so quickly, especially in PvP. So I can't see a lot of people taking this trait, if I'm gonna be honest. And additionally, your dagger skills function arguably better in melee. So I want them to reward players for staying at ranged a little bit. And additionally, talking about the ranged, I think Blade Call, the projectiles are a bit too thin. If the daggers were a bit bigger, I think it would actually make it easier to hit. Because I noticed in PvP, it was really difficult to hit Blade Call against players because they move so often. So if those projectiles were slightly thickened and a bit wider, they don't have to cover the whole entire cone, the max cone range. But I think if they just had a little bit of extra love, that would work a little bit better. Slice them apart. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm just having fun like fighting things. And I think that's the important thing. I'm having fun using skills and actually like being active. Sharp blades, sharp mind. And I love the new voice lines. They're really cool. It's wonderful hearing voice lines, but especially for Char, it is kind of jarring because you have the original Char actor's voice saying the common lines, but then you hear a very distinct vocal change. I would love to see if they could go back and revoice those core combat lines like swiftly or like might makes right or something. I want to talk about the condition line because I think it is really keen to talk about. It's the thing to talk about. Dragon Mind, Sharpening Sorrow, and Blood Song. I tried using this in PvP. I did. And I tried using it in PvE. I cannot see people running any of these Genuinely. I can't see this being good. I was playing in a PvP, and I was getting, at most, 15 stacks of bleed, but they all fell off after 2-3 seconds. There's not enough condition duration in PvP, even with this trait, for the entire bottom line to be useful. In PvE, if you happen to build maximum expertise, maybe, just maybe, you could get some use out of the bleeding. But because it's tied to critical hits, it is even less reliable. And I understand they're probably trying to do something with dueling here, where your illusions inflict bleeding, certain pistol skills, you can get more bleeding out of that. This is useful in Mirage. This is not useful in Virtuoso. So I'm going to say, and this might be like, I might be like totally proven wrong, but this bottom trait line, I can almost guarantee will never be used. All three of these, not at all. I can't see it. I'm gonna say that all three of these bottom trait lines will be reworked in the future. I think that these should be a bit more supportive. I think these should be fulfilling that niche of Mesmer that we have not seen. I would like if perhaps this was like when especially the Grandmaster, this Grandmaster will change Blade Turn Requiem into another Blade song where you place it down in a location and it grants everybody an Aegis stack and, I don't know, gives them vigor or gives them fury. Something a bit more supportive to where it changes the play style of how you want to go about the Virtuoso. And maybe even Jagged Mind, where it's like when you gain a blade, you like reverberate, because this icon seems to be like a bit of like reverberation. Like you reverberate a boon and you give it to an ally or something like that. Something a bit more exciting than just like your blade attacks, which also this tooltip is wrong as well, because your blade attacks don't have a chance to inflict bleeding on critical hits if in all three game modes the chance on critical hit is 100%. This, if anything, the tooltip should be reworded, because it would just be titled, the tooltip should just be blade attacks inflict bleed on critical hits, because in all three game modes currently the chance on critical hit is 100%. So it's just kind of weird. There's no chance involved if it's 100%. As my final thoughts about the whole ranged debacle and spiel, we have elite specs now like the Willbender and even the Harbinger, because it has a lot of mobility as well. I want there to be elite specs in End of Dragons that focus on ranged to give even more use out of those elite specs that chase down players. And I want to have elite specs that focus you for being able to get away or being able to go unnoticed at ranged and you can do some more damage. And then maybe when the Willbender notices that you're striking from afar and doing good packets of damage, they'll then chase you down. But then again, I don't want the Virtuoso to then go, oh, but I'm actually better in melee, so joke's on you. That doesn't feel super great. I would much rather the Virtuoso be an elite spec that cooperates and plays with the other elite specs that chase you down. So overall, that is my biggest gripe with the class. In terms of the damage and everything, I think the damage is actually pretty good. It's not too crazy, it's not too weird. Blade Renew is also a wonderful skill, and it allows you to really prep a combat encounter before you even get in, because you'll have full stacks of blades. But everyone, that is the Virtuoso and my quick little PvE build and review. There will probably be another PvP build video focused on the Virtuoso, but this is the PvE one. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I'm an official ArenaNet partner, which means I have links down below where you could pre-order End of Dragons, buy the expansions, and try the game for free. If you've liked what you've seen, I think End of Dragons will be a really wonderful expansion for you. Like, comment, subscribe. I also have a Patreon if you like to help me. So thank you guys to my patrons. You guys are wonderful. You get some exclusive access and some Discord stuff as well. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye everyone!